People get scared when they hear the word alone. They think it means isolation, rejection, emptiness. But let me tell you something, being alone is not a punishment, it's a privilege. It's the moment life gives you to face yourself, to meet the person behind the noise, behind the crowd, behind the expectations. Most people run from solitude because silence exposes truth, and truth, my friend, can be uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that's where growth begins. See, when you're surrounded by people all the time, you start to lose your reflection. You start to see yourself through their opinions, their judgments, their labels. You forget who you were before the world told you who to be, but when you're alone, there's no mask left to wear, no applause to chase, no validation to seek. It's just you, your thoughts, your flaws, your dreams, and that's where the real battle starts. The battle between who you are and who you're meant to be. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. Loneliness comes from the absence of connection, but solitude comes from the presence of purpose. When you choose solitude, you're not escaping people, you're returning to yourself. You're recharging your spirit, sharpening your vision, and rebuilding your foundation. You start to realize that peace isn't found in people, it's built in silence. That freedom isn't in being liked, it's in being real. You start to walk differently when you know who you are. You stop chasing crowds that don't understand your journey. You stop explaining your vision to those who were never meant to see it. You stop begging for company when you were born to stand out. And in that stillness, you start to hear a new voice. The voice of your own strength. The voice that says, keep going. The voice that says, you don't need them to believe in you. You need to believe in yourself. There's a power that comes when you learn to sit with yourself without fear. When you can face your thoughts and not run, when you can spend time in silence and not need distraction, that's when your real transformation begins, because being alone teaches you self-respect, discipline, clarity. It shows you that your happiness isn't someone else's responsibility, it's your own. So don't be afraid of being alone. Be afraid of never meeting yourself. Be afraid of living a life that pleases everyone but you. Because when you master solitude, you master peace. And once you find that peace, nothing and no one can take it away. Solitude reveals your true identity beyond external noise. When you step away from the world's chaos, from the constant opinions and judgments, you begin to see who you really are beneath it all. Most people never get to know themselves because they're always surrounded by distractions. Phones buzzing, conversations flowing, voices telling them what they should do, who they should be, what success should look like. But when you remove the noise, the mask starts to fall. You're left with your real reflection, the one that doesn't need approval or applause. That silence may feel uncomfortable at first because it forces you to confront the truth, your fears, your weaknesses, your doubts. Yet it also reveals your potential, your strength, and your purpose. You begin to hear your own voice again, the one you've ignored for years while listening to everyone else. In solitude, you discover that the person you've been searching for has always been inside you, waiting to be heard. You start to understand what truly matters to you, what you stand for, and what you will no longer tolerate. The world can only define you if you don't know yourself, but once you do, you become unshakable. Solitude doesn't isolate you, it refines you, it strips away what's false so what's real can finally rise. Being alone builds strength, clarity, and self-respect. When you spend time with yourself, you begin to understand what you can handle, what you need, and what you deserve. Solitude tests you. It exposes your weaknesses, but also introduces you to your hidden power. You learn that you don't need constant company to feel whole, that your worth doesn't depend on who stays or leaves. In that quiet space, you start to see life differently. You recognize that the energy you once gave away so freely now belongs to your own growth. Strength is built when you face your thoughts without running from them, when you push through the moments of silence that used to scare you. Clarity comes when you no longer seek the world's validation, when decisions are made from conviction, not confusion. And self-respect, that grows when you realize you're enough on your own, when you stop allowing people to treat you less than what you deserve just because you fear being alone. Solitude teaches you that not everyone deserves access to your peace, and not every place deserves your presence. It reminds you that power doesn't always roar. It often sits quietly in those who have learned to be at ease with themselves. In that stillness, You stop being desperate for connection and start being devoted to your evolution. Loneliness is emptiness. Solitude is empowerment. Loneliness drains you because it's built on the belief that something or someone outside of you is missing. It creates a void that feeds on comparison, doubt, and fear. Solitude, on the other hand, fills you because it's a conscious choice to be with yourself. It's not about absence, it's about presence. When you choose solitude, you shift from needing others to validate you to realizing your own power. You begin to understand that peace doesn't come from people. It comes from alignment. You start to use your time alone to grow, to reflect, to plan, and to heal. Loneliness makes you crave attention, but solitude makes you crave growth. One is a cry for help, the other a call to purpose. When you sit in solitude long enough, you stop fearing silence and start using it as a tool. You learn to listen to your inner voice, the one that's often drowned by the noise of the world. You find strength in your own company and confidence in your own decisions. That's the difference between feeling lost and being found. Loneliness keeps you stuck in dependency, waiting for someone to fill a gap, while solitude teaches you that you already hold everything you need within yourself. It's a shift in mindset, a transformation from emptiness to empowerment, from longing to becoming. Silence is where growth and purpose take root. In a world that never stops talking, silence becomes your greatest teacher. It's in the quiet moments where you truly hear yourself, where your thoughts settle and your vision starts to clear. Most people fear silence because it strips away distractions and forces them to confront what's real. But that's exactly where transformation begins. In silence, you can no longer hide behind noise or busyness. You're face with your truth. That stillness gives you space to process your experiences, to understand what lessons life has been trying to teach you. It's where ideas are born, where clarity replaces confusion, and where strength takes shape without the need for validation. Growth doesn't always come from movement. Sometimes it comes from stillness. When you embrace silence, you give yourself permission to listen to your intuition, your calling, and the subtle guidance that life whispers when the world isn't shouting over it. Purpose doesn't reveal itself in chaos. It blooms in calm. The more you learn to sit in silence, the more aware you become of what truly matters. You begin to see that the noise outside of you has nothing on the peace within you. That peace becomes your power, that focus becomes your direction, and that silence becomes your foundation for everything you're meant to build. Mastering solitude leads to inner peace and freedom. When you reach the point where your own company feels complete, you unlock a level of strength that nothing external can shake. You no longer depend on others to validate your worth or fill your voids, because you've learned how to fill them yourself. Solitude teaches you to stand tall in silence, to breathe through uncertainty, and to find calm even when life feels heavy. That's where peace begins, not in control, not in perfection, but in acceptance. When you master solitude, you stop chasing temporary comfort and start building lasting balance. You begin to understand that freedom isn't about escaping people. It's about being unbothered by their absence. You stop waiting for others to bring you happiness because you've already built it within. The opinions that once held you back lose their power, and the need for approval fades. You walk lighter, think clearer, and move with purpose. Solitude doesn't cage you. It releases you from the cages you built in your own mind. It gives you time to hear your thoughts, to reflect, to heal, and to grow into the person you were meant to become. True peace isn't found in noise or crowds. It's discovered in those quiet hours when you finally realize that being alone was never the problem. It was the path to your liberation.